So I'll start with welcoming you all. I've been here over the last 6 months, and something I just picked up, and I'm going to actually cheat just a bit, what Sindhu said. We at AnitaB.orgIndia, none of us come from a technical background, guys. None of us are technology people. We come from varied backgrounds. But what we bring to the table when we work with organizations like yourselves, people like yourselves from technology world, is the understanding of the diversity and inclusion that organizations today need to make a core pillar for their growth and move forward. When we say diversity and inclusion, obviously there are a lot of parameters, a lot of verticals that come into play. But what is core and very close to heart of AnitaB.org is women empowerment, and we are purely talking the tech sector. Now, why do I highlight women? Why do I highlight tech? Stats, and this is from reports from Ernst & Young. These are the latest reports. What is the state of women in technology in India today? We at AnitaB, we are global. We are across 70 countries. We have a membership of 70,000 plus, where we are talking only about 3% allies and about 4% non-binary. The rest is all women. Why am I singling out or highlighting India? Because when I look at India, I call it, when you use the word cradle of civilization, it's the cradle of IT for me, who comes from a non-tech background. I sit here, I've taken up this role, I look around me, and I look around our footprint, for AnitaB across the world. And it just drives me to really take a footprint pan-India 3 times faster than what it's been in the past. We are the ones who's literally nurturing out this talent. And you look at your own organizations, you look at the number of women as opposed to men. And here are some interesting stats. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that. But when people come out of colleges, IT institutes, technology institutes, we're talking Ivy Leagues, we're talking Premier, we're talking small technology institutes, because not everybody has an opportunity to go to the big ones, right? 1 in 10 is the ratio of men to women. Then when we look at a cycle of 2 to 3 years, out of 100 people who joined an organization, and out of 100, we're looking at 10 women, 90 men. Out of those 10 women, we only have 3 to 4 still working in core technology. Women are stepping out of their roles, stepping into roles which is, front-end roles, more about customer servicing, deviating from what they really educated themselves, what was their passion, what they'd learned. They're unlearning that and moving to roles where they think they have a better chance. What we need over here is organizations to really step up the leadership. And I'm calling out to our male allies, because that's where we only have a presence of 1% of women at boardroom level in the tech world in India as a sector. But when we look at this room, we're looking at the ratio, it shouts at us. Why not more women making it to the boardroom? Why are we hitting the glass ceiling so early? What is losing us or causing us to lose our momentum? why we're not driving or making long-term careers out of what we started out with. What AnitaB has done is identify these gaps. It's not a gap in your skill. It's not a gap in your knowledge. It's a gap of understanding the career progression. It's a gap at the organization levels. And I'm calling all organizations here to understand that, diversity and inclusion, and I'm going to really hone in on the gender aspect here. They need to drive that, and it can be driven by the senior leadership, which 99% today is in the hands of our friends, the male allies. They are the ones who need to understand and drive this change. And I have to say that if you look at our impact reports, a lot of leaders from a lot of Fortune 500 companies are driving this change. But what is needed? They can drive it. You can take a horse to a well. You can't make him drink water. They're driving this change. They're bringing the change. It's for us, women in technology, to imbibe that, accept that, and move with it. Understand our own power, get together as a community, and achieve our missions and our visions. So when I say that, I'm just going to step away now and now talk what AnitaB is all about. Pretty much said what we do, but we are driving on the mission and vision of our founder. We've been in business 30 years, working with communities. We have in excess of 75 communities across the world. And in India, we started off with 4 communities. Happy to say we have a 5th community now in Mumbai, functional. We work with communities, we work with organizations, I said 200 plus corporates. It's literally leading or working on the vision of our founder, Anita, and which is to empower women in the tech sector. Because when we are looking down the line, it is technology that's driving us. Where do women find the space in this? So to do this, AnitaB has a lot of verticals where we can support you, as an organization, as individuals. We have a communities, becoming a part of a community, and the idea is really to guide you guys, connect you so you can inspire each other, work with each other, motivate each other, and get closer to your career aspirations. We provide a platform, a global platform, where you have 100 plus resources. I'm not going to stand here and list all of them, but it's about giving you the content to upskill yourselves, find mentors from the global platform, to understand where you want to go, who can help you get there. Work with each other. Our communities pretty much connect on a weekly basis. Knowledge exchange, thought exchange, personal challenges. This is such a sector where when we talk about hitting the glass ceiling, or we are talking about women not making it to the board levels, or we're talking about large number of women dropping out and changing their career path, it is because of challenges, whether it's challenges at work front, whether it's challenges in their own personal lives. This gives you a safe space to come out and discuss. So you're not taking it back to HR in your organization. You're taking it to a like-minded community where everybody's going through the same journey. And that is AnitaB's mission and vision. When I talk India, we have a strategic plan for India. A lot of our members here right now know we've gone through a lull for 2 years. The pandemic kind of forced us to work virtually. We've kept connected virtually, but what brings us together is in person. What brings us together is meeting and talking more regularly. We are looking at connecting on a 365 basis, which is almost, one event a month going forward. And finally, and I'm not just talking Hyderabad community, I'm talking all communities to come together. Finally gearing up to what we have as a flagship, our flagship event, which is the Grace Hopper Celebration India. And now we haven't had that for 2 years, and I'm going to take the opportunity and announce we are having a Grace Hopper India in November 2023, in person, no hybrid, no virtual. We're all going to meet up again, and I don't know how many of you have been a part of it. Our members definitely have, but for the people who've not been a part of it, strongly advocate to you guys to look it up, look at the information. It gives you a very strong foundation to really start rethinking and becoming a part of an organization or a platform that's going to help you achieve where you want to go. With that in mind, welcome everyone, and I'm going to now hand it over for what we're here for today, which is our digital security tech talks. We have experts here who are going to take you through a panel discussion, interactive, interesting, going to be followed by a session on entrepreneurship, somebody who's going to share their journey on entrepreneurship, and I think Sindhu will take you through that in more depth. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Pooja. Very inspirational, very forward-looking statements in terms of our mission and purpose for why we are here. So with closer to home, to learn more about the Hyderabad chapter, can I invite the two leading ladies here, Kavita and Soumya, onto the stage. A little bit about both of them. Kavita is a VP for Cloud Services at Blue Yonder. In the neighborhood, you will see the Blue Yonder. If some of you don't know what Blue Yonder does, it's a supply chain software company. Kavita is passionate about women in tech and leadership, working towards creating a strong pipeline. Her aim is really to look at 50-50 diverse workforce. That's really all of us, right? We want to see how we can try and reflect the workforce just like the way our society is, right? So Kavita has been in the core committee, member of the AnitaB.org Hyderabad chapter, and has been a track lead and an active member of this chapter. She has been associated with AnitaB.org since 2013. That's pretty long time, Kavita. Awesome. With that, let me move on to Soumya. Soumya, a senior tech leader with 20 plus years of experience in building high, complex, distributed and resilient systems. Now, tech is something which is very scary, but I'll sit with you later. The expertise in managing all aspects of technology and software, and of course, through the engineering life cycle. A proven track record in building teams and products from scratch, defining and influencing operating models and vision, product and execution strategy, and championing and growing engineering talent. Wow. A strong champion, like Pooja was talking about diversity and inclusion. I love the word inclusion. It is a lot more than diversity for me. So welcome, both of you. Here you go. Can we have a big round of applause for the two ladies?
Actually, a big thank you for, I know you must have heard this word too many times already, but thank you for being here. A warm welcome. And this being an event after literally close to 2 years, being in person, it's very exciting. And also it's making me nervous because this is, even though I've been to other Hopper events and meetups, to talk to 100 plus women here in this hall, it's actually giving me a little bit of sweaty hands, which is a good feeling. You know, it's a terrific feeling. So I have many personas, and I think Soumya articulated them well. All of us have so many personas that we wear, a professional persona and personas, tons of personas at home. On technology, just by reading blogs or reading textbooks. Meetups, trying to find out, hey, what somebody is doing, how is their CI/CD pipeline, what are the new technologies they're bringing in there. It kind of connects you much faster. So leverage this network. So a little bit about the Hyderabad chapter. We were all part of the Bangalore chapter before, 10 years ago. And then a few years ago, 5 years ago, we had enough women in here who were very passionate, and we wanted to create this Hyderabad chapter, and we kind of created this chapter. I know Anu is in here, who's been with us right from the beginning. So it's an exciting, as we meet now, I'm seeing these fresh faces. Weekend meetups. We had a lot of meetups where we invited authors who wrote non-technical books, right? But it's that journey that helps you also maneuver your journeys much easier. We had just had teas together where we brainstormed thought processes on how things go at work. So all of those small connections and small networks that we create for ourselves, actually they kind of, you have some learning out of that, and you carry yourself with that, right? So I welcome all of you all to do that and be part of the Hyderabad chapter and sign up for volunteering, right? So we have a huge event coming up in November next year for Bangalore. And I want the Hyderabad chapter to make that presence in Grace Hopper's Bangalore. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavita, and thank you, Pooja, again, for setting the stage and sharing the journey so far. That's been so fabulous. The vision and the purpose of this community is definitely inspiring. Don't you agree? Yeah? So, we're now ready to hear from our keynote speaker for today. Now, the topic leadership, has always fascinated me. The reason it has fascinated me is because I come from a talent and leadership background, and there are many books written on leadership. Google can give you thousands of search results, right? But there's one thing that stands out, which is leadership is not really about a title or a position. It's really a choice you make. And we would love to hear about those choices that Vidya made in her journey, and we would love to hear her journey so far, right? So a little bit about Vidya. Vidya Meyyappan, I hope I pronounced the surname right, Managing Director in the Consumer and Community Banking Technology Organization, is a product owner. Now, in the tech industry, that's a big thing, right? In this role, she's responsible for setting the vision, roadmap, and strategy for the product that provides a unified framework, platform, services, and engineering practices to be widely adopted by the consumer and community banking engineering community. Vidya has also been an integral part of the diversity, equity, inclusion pillar for Hyderabad and works actively towards building an inclusive culture in which employees can thrive and succeed. Let's join our hands to welcome our keynote speaker for today. Vidya, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So nice to see all the faces in person. I'm actually very impressed that, so many people have actually joined to be in person. I think that's a big change. So first of all, I do want to thank AnitaB.org for really hosting this session. And it was absolutely amazing to hear the vision from Pooja on what they are doing for this community, right? To really help or empower women in this industry. Honestly, I think when I was growing in my career, if I had some of these opportunities, it would have been a huge help. So I would really, really recommend each of you to kind of take advantage of some of the offerings that AnitaB.org is offering for you guys to make that choice of, career. And I know a lot of familiar faces here, and I know some of you are very passionate and ambitious, and I think it's important to be passionate and ambitious. So I think we also spoke about pandemic, right? Let's put the pandemic behind us. Let's move forward, right? So if I really think about it, right, I felt like it was a journey until 2 years ago, and after the pandemic, it feels like life has completely changed. Everything is moving so fast. How do we really thrive in this, ecosystem, right? Everything is digital. Everything comes to your doorstep. It's all at the click of a button. But how do you really manage your career? How do you grow in this environment is what I really want to spend a few minutes before I don't want to go on a monologue. I really want it to be interactive. So if you have your questions, please keep them parked. So how many of you here, this is probably your first job since the pandemic? Anybody since it's the first job? Okay. Okay, we do have someone. Nice. So how does it feel to be back in person And I'm sure 2 years you didn't meet anybody. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So, and how many of you joined a new job in pandemic? That we saw quite a bit. Thank you very much for raising your hands. So, a lot of people, when you ask, right, how many years experience you have, they completely cut away the pandemic experience. They really don't count it as an experience, right? But the amount of work that you guys probably churned out during that time is just amazing, right? So, how do we, what are some of the things we should really do in this new hybrid world, right? I think, first of all, it's important to be back in person. However, it may not be possible for all, but definitely make an effort to come back. The feel, the touch, the person makes a lot of difference. So the key here is communicate, 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 and collaborate when you are being flexible, right? There is always the fear of missing out. Some of them are virtual, some of them are in person. You feel like the person who's on the ground is able to make an impact, but the person on virtual, it's very tough, right? So it is a challenge. I think one of the things you need to do is communicate, be in front of things that you do. Take credit for what you do. And we all shy away from it. I'm guilty of that too, right? We do all the work, we let somebody else take the credit, right? Take it forward for you. Don't do that. Make a conscious effort to come in front. It may be uncomfortable for the first few times, but you'll kind of get used to it, right? So definitely come forward, stay in front of things, lead from the front. And the other thing that you want to do is connect. I see a lot of JPMC folks sitting together. I really want you guys to get away from the known faces and really get to know people that you don't know, right? I keep saying this, and you probably hear me, the JPMC guys probably hear me. Networking is so important in your career, right? Knowing people through your career, and it's not a one-time thing. You got a network. This is a perfect opportunity. GHCI is another perfect opportunity. It's more these lobby conversations really turn things around. It's not meetings, right? So definitely grow your network, meet people, right? And keep those networks. Be consistent in keeping those networks. Even today, I go back to friends that I've worked 10 years back, and I simply catch up with them just to see. Again, you can go back to them with no intention, right? It's about building network and a relationship. That will really help you. So these are some of the things you need to kind of consciously make an effort to do in this kind of hybrid model. Before, you didn't have to do it so consciously, but I think in this new model, all these things become very important. So definitely make that effort, right? The second thing that I want to talk about is digitization. Everybody came with a paper. I came with my phone with all my notes in my phone, right? Everybody is digitizing, right? How do we upskill ourselves to deliver some of those digitized products? Everybody wants like 2 millisecond SLA and everything you want at the push of a button. Very important to stay upskilled, find opportunity, find ways that works for you. Some people go through trainings, some people listen to people and learn, some people listen to podcasts. Choose what you think works for you. So keeping yourself upskilled on some of the cutting edge technologies is very, very important, right? So definitely, invest in yourself. We as women, we don't do that. And particularly with all the different things with us, kids, in-laws, parents, and everything, we don't do that. But I think making that conscious effort to invest in yourself is very, very important. The third thing that I want to talk about is the risk factor. With everything that's going digital, right? The amount of risk that we are exposed to is immense. So I'll just tell you, right? So I have teenage kids, right? My son, every time he goes in and out of the house, I keep telling him, lock the door. He's like, why should I lock the door? Like, he doesn't understand the concept of somebody coming and, robbing your house or anything. At the same time, I can't get into his phone. It's always locked, right? And he has his alarms at these, like, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and I'm struggling to turn it off, but I don't know his passcode. I think this generation knows, right? Everything needs to be logged. And I asked my son, you're on Instagram. How do you know whom to accept a request from and whom not to? So he gave me this theory. He said, if that contact and I have 30 mutual contacts, that's when I know that this is genuine, right? So just that sense of being cautious in this digital world, right? With all our data out there. If you walk past an in-orbit mall, how many messages do you get for shopping, right? They pull it. They pull all the data, even if you're on airplane mode, right? So as technologists, right, when you are building system, think security first. Drive risk-driven development. Do risk-based testing, right? Hackers, you don't have to have an application in production, right, for hackers to get in and hack them. It can be anywhere in the network, right? So as you're upskilling yourself, while you're upskilling yourself on public cloud and microservices and data and all of that, make sure you invest yourself in the risk as well. It's becoming really, really big right now, and I think you guys should all stay on top of that. So, and then data, right? Data is the new oil. You can just do so much with data. So when you're designing your data, how are you going to secure it at transit? How are you going to secure it at rest? Think through all of those things, right? So building a secure system should be the crux of what you do, right? So those are some of the things that you should kind of keep in mind when we are kind of in this mode, right? And finally, I do want to all this is good, building networks, upskilling yourself, leveraging the resources that you have around you to grow yourself. And I think somebody mentioned mentoring. I think that is also equally important. Identify a mentor that you are comfortable with, right? Don't get a mentor assigned to you, right? Because you need to have that comfort level of conversation. So mentoring is another important aspect for you to grow so they kind of will help you to adjust to that ecosystem. They know it, right? So these are all some of the things. But the last thing I just want to touch upon before I kind of close and I kind of open it up for questions. While you do all of this, work-life balance is very, very important. I think with COVID, I'm sure most of us went through something or the other, and life changed. I'm sure for most of us, life changed. So the focus on health, family is very important. And I think that's why it's so important to come back to work. You need to break off from work at your 6 p.m., 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. It is important to break off from work so you have your peace of mind, you're spending time with your family or whatever, right? So definitely that should be a very important priority in this journey of yours in career, right? So these are some of the things that I think I've tried to make a conscious effort. I'm still learning, and I'm sure I'll continue to learn. But hopefully you got one or two things to take away, but definitely apply that. And definitely network, and there's a lot of good stuff lined up today, and I'm sure you can take something away from there as well.
So with that, for our next segment, it's a panel discussion. So we said, how do we get some great speakers, all of them together on the stage? And the brilliant way of doing that is what is called a panel discussion. And let me take the opportunity to introduce our panelists one by one. Our first panelist is Krishna. Krishna, Managing Director and Hyderabad Technology Center leader with 25 plus years of experience in financial services, IT. He is a senior leader with extensive experience in delivering to business and regulatory agendas, specializing in APAC. Krishna is happily married to his wife, who also works in IT. with two teenage kids, and I'm sure that is a challenge that you're currently going through, having two teenagers ready to embark on college education. He's a sports fan and actively plays tennis and cricket. Thank you, Krishna, for being here, and I welcome you to the stage. Let's give Krishna a big round of applause. Our next panelist is Purnima Kamble, who has more than 2 decades of experience in the areas of corporate and commercial law, including legal consultancy in foreign investment, infrastructure projects, joint ventures, mergers and acquisition, capital structuring, land acquisitions, etc. She has received various accolades for providing bespoke counsel, including the recent recognition as one of the top 100 lawyers in India by Forbes. Wow, she definitely deserves a big hand for that. As a special interest in women-related issues, Purnima works actively in respect of matters related to sexual harassment in workplace, also known as POSH, in many companies, for which she conducts various training sessions, and in also on the Internal Complaints Committee, ICC, for many companies. Thank you, Purnima. Can we have you up here on the stage? Our third panelist is Shweta Pathak, working with Google for 15 plus years now. Shweta started her journey as a software engineer with what Google called search in a box. We know how Google used to be, and now we can't survive without Google, right? Enterprise search product, and then moved on to working on Google Workspace. For the last 5 years, she's been part of the Google Payments team, leading an engineering team to mitigate fraud and abuse in the system, something related to what Vidya just spoke about, right? Let's hear from her what that means. Thank you so much, Shweta, for coming here. Let's welcome Shweta. And this panel is moderated by an amazing person called Namratha Gopisetti. Let me tell you a little about her. A self-directed and driven senior IT engineering leader with JPMorgan Chase, with comprehensive accomplishments in building, organizing, structuring, optimizing, and managing teams to ensure high-quality work products. A creative and innovative leader with strong industry acumen, have demonstrated success designing software products for global organizations in the healthcare and banking domains. Let's welcome our moderator for this panel discussion. Namratha, over to you.
So very good afternoon to everybody. I know we have a lot of wonderful men and women today. The event that we have today is going to be very impactful and very knowledgeable as well. We've already heard about our panelists from Sindhu. So let me take forward a little more and talk a little about what we're going to talk for today. Doris A. Wright had rightly said, "The future lies before you like a field of fallen snow. Be careful how you tread it, and every tread will show." The reason I bring this quote across to the audience today is basically because we all live in a world of digitization and technology. And with this being said, it's very important how carefully we use technology, because a misuse of this same technology could have hazardous and disastrous effects on the world. While I go down and we talk about the cybersecurity today, let me bring about some advantages of digitization that we have and that we all are aware of. We have fast access to information, improved customer experience, increased productivity, it helps lower operational costs, helps become agile, helps build automated systems, and helps in disaster recovery as well. Now, a little more insight into the topic that we're going to talk on today, and where our panels are going to give us a lot of information about. Organizations today are embracing digital technologies in greater numbers than ever before. However, progress towards modernity and digitization must be carefully planned and articulated, and the use of technology, processes, and systems must be carefully designed and built. While I say this, the very purpose of digitization is to make easy access of information, systems, and data. While we do this, it's coupled with digital information that can make organization, people, and processes better informed and make them take very sensible decisions while dealing with organizations and people. While digitization has evolved over the years, organizations are also facing a new risk paradigm that not only has physical threats but also has cyber threats aligned to it. We've heard a number of anecdotes of phishing, things like identity thefts, scam, data breaches, and also instances of ATM skimming. When I talk of this, let me bring some references here. Large-scale product, financial, and service organizations have been big victims of hackers looking to steal personal protected information, corporate information, transactional data, and also funds from all of us. And they only continue to evolve over the day with more sophisticated technologies, strategies, and approaches. While this being said, and having set the context, I would also like to thank Vidya for helping us segue into the cybersecurity topic that we plan to indulge in the panel discussion today. So my first question for the panelists, I hope you all are ready to get started with the discussion, and the audience with all your questions for the panel as well. So my first question would be directed to Ms. Purnima Kamble. What is the comprehensive approach of digital and cyber security that we have today?
First of all, thank you so much, AnitaB, for having me here. Thank you, Namratha, for having me here on the panel, and Sindhu for the very kind introduction. I have to tell you, I am now a little at ease when I heard that most of the leaders in this organization are non-tech. I was a little scared when I came here. Technology is very scary as far as people like me are concerned. We are completely non-tech lawyers. Of course, I do some tech practice. But if you are to put me, before I actually start my meetings with people, my clients, I make one disclaimer. I may be a decent lawyer, but I'm technologically challenged. So sitting here in front of all the technocrats and technology experts, it was a little intimidating initially, but I'm so comfortable now after hearing Pooja a little earlier today. Now, insofar as the digital cybersecurity, or rather the overview that you'd asked me, I want you all to understand one thing. We are evolving from a legal perspective also. And I don't know how many of you had a chance to see the recent digital personal data security bill that is proposed. I'm not sure how many of you saw that. You would have probably seen the provisions and all the analysis that came on the television, etc. What you probably did not see was the explanatory note that the MeitY, that's the ministry, has given to this draft bill. And it has used a very interesting term. It said digital Nagrik. So we are now becoming digital Nagriks. So we have an alter ego now. We are Nagriks and digital Nagriks, right? And that is a very important term, because now a separate existence is being recognized of each and every individual. And that is where the protection, the overall overarching need for protection arises. Just like the citizen is protected by the various laws, the digital citizen also has to be protected. And if you ask me, the framework is very broad. So if I step back, the main law that is there is the IT Act. And that was, was introduced in 2000. At that point in time, or a little earlier than that, the digital revolution was taking place. So to address issues that were coming up, the act was put in place. Now the digital world is a very dynamic world. The IT world is a very dynamic world. There can, unlike the regular laws that you have where, after 40 years they change it. After some laws are still not changed. You still have the Indian Telegraph Act. You still have many acts which are there, even our CPC or the Criminal Act, CRPC, a lot of it is coming from the olden days. Even British regime period onwards. So it takes time before you actually amend, you actually have another act. But when it comes to IT, the situation, the circumstances, the essence is changing so fast that I do believe that we are only in an evolutionary stage right now, and the laws will be changing over time. Rapidly, there will be amendments, etc. So how is the government, first let me explain to you how is the government taking care of this rapidly changing time. So the IT Act of 2000 was there. Then an amendment was made in IT Act of 2000, which was IT Act of 2008. Now, why was this amendment made? Let me give you an example. So there are multiple provisions in the IT Act. For example, Section 43. It talks about hacking. And let me tell you, one unique aspect of the IT Act is that it has both penal and civic liabilities.
So there can be imprisonment for certain issues which are civic issues, and there are criminal offenses as well where there can be imprisonment as well. This is a very unique act. Otherwise, under Indian law, you have criminal under CRPC and IPC, and civic is absolutely different under the CPC. But this is a special act which has both these elements. Now, I'll give you an example. Section 43 in the IT Act talked about hacking, and the punishment there was for the hacker. But there was no responsibility on the organization which was, collecting the data or storing the data. And that need was felt, and then a change was done in 2008 where 43A was introduced to address this, to fix some sort of responsibility on the company. Now the situation is changing even faster. You have Instagram, you have social influencers, you have media, social media, you have, now who is the intermediary? Many things are coming up, many questions like these. You'll see multiple litigations which are coming up on this point of intermediaries. So what the government is doing is, for most of the provisions under the IT Act, there are rules being given over time. So I think there are 4 major rules which have come in so far. These rules deal with issues which are evolutionary issues, dynamic issues. For example, sensitive private information. What is sensitive personal information? That is not defined. Personal information was not defined earlier. Then there was a definition that came in that personal information is anything by which a person can be identified, either directly or indirectly or in collaboration with another or some other information. Now that needs to be even more fine-tuned, because you have passwords, you have now wallets, you have all those kind of things. Now interface has changed completely. So rules have come in, and I suspect more and more rules will come in over time. So in a nutshell, if you ask me, the overview, the landscape of digital laws is that, you have the person, you have the device, and you have the government. And our laws are aimed at protecting all these 3 aspects. When I say person, today, since I also do POSH, and I see most, and this is, I had heard the conversation around women empowerment, women related issues in your sector, where unfortunately the participation is very low. Issues like POSH, for example. I have seen cases of cyber stalking, terrible cases of cyber stalking, and it can be terrible, mentally very, very damaging for the woman who's facing that. So issues like these come under the personal aspect, where there is a whole network of laws. So for example, the IPC, the Indian Penal Code, has provisions where stalking is a criminal offense. So you can take your rights under the IT Act, under the IPC, and there is protection around that. So that is person. In fact, even defamation or causing damage to reputation, these are all things you will have protection against. That is the person's protection in the digital world. Then comes the device's protection in the digital world. For example, hacking, phishing, not allowing websites to give service. All these kinds of incidents are reported. These are the breaches that are reported from time to time. So this is, and then, cloning your phone and doing frauds. So many of these aspects, these are all covered in this whole network of laws, which would be IT Act, your IPC, etc. Then comes the government, where you have terrorist attacks, etc. And those, again, are taken care of under the various acts. Let me also mention here many acts, like the Companies Act, for example, or the Consumer Protection Act. All these, again, interface in the digital world. So it's not that, digital world was not conceived of when these acts were put in place. But the frauds and the offenses that are happening are somewhat the same. When there is a fraud, only the modus operandi has changed. The vulnerabilities have changed, but the fraud is still fraud. But how do you come to that fraud in this digital world of anonymity is what needs to be addressed, and that is addressed through the IT Act. So the gaps are being filled through the IT Act and the rules, etc. But what is most interesting is the change that is coming now with respect to data privacy. Data privacy, unfortunately, earlier was not a very clear domain as far as legal provisions were concerned. But that is now being recognized and addressed, especially given the context that India is now dealing with so many other jurisdictions. You have companies, for example, I'm sure, like JPMorgan Chase, for example. You will be dealing with multiple companies across jurisdictions. How data, collection of data, storage of data, processing of data, what is the individual's ownership, the data provider's ownership on that data? What is the consent around that? When can consent be withdrawn, if at all it can be withdrawn? Can that consent be deleted? Can the information be deleted? Right now there is no provision for deletion. It's very interesting. I have to tell you before I end that even the Supreme Court has now given, or rather recognized, the right to be forgotten. That is a right of that is a privacy right. That is under the subheading of right to privacy. Right to be forgotten is also there. So these are new concepts that are coming up. Now imagine in those days when the Constitution was written, could anyone have envisaged the right to be forgotten? Yeah, so that's not a fundamental right in our day one Constitution. But I do believe all these things are set to change because the digital Nagrik is growing up now. Yeah. So with that, I will pass it back to you, Namratha.
Thank you, Purnima. I think with what you've said, the group here definitely relates to why it's important for us to have our risk and controls in place in the tech organizations. Now, taking that to a step further, my next question would be to Mr. Krishna. In today's world, banks and financial organizations of all types are primary targets to hackers. It's not just the monetary loss that people and businesses are concerned about, but there's also an added layer of threat, that's the threat to their brand, customer trust, and employee safety. How do you think the tech industry should collaborate to help mitigate the risk, to ensure organizations know they are safe and the systems are secure?
Thank you, Namratha. First of all, thank you for having me here. Thank you, AnitaB. This is my first interaction with such an organization and forum. So really glad to be here. So let me just start off with, trying to answer the question. I think you set up the stage very well. And for somebody who's not a technologist, you actually talk technology, and I'll tell you why. So let's talk about a little bit of history of how industry has evolved, technology industry has evolved. If you talked about developing a feature or a product, usually the focus was only on developing the product, and product was rolled out, and then you realized that you didn't have some of the key aspects around security, and you knew it as a reactionary measure when something went wrong with that product in terms of whether you lost customer data or privacy, and then you started building controls around trying to figure out how to mitigate that. And the way the development was also done, for those of you in the IT industry for quite some time, is the people who developed features were different from people who actually developed the security side of it, right? They were two distinct organizations, often not talking to each other, right? Or talking to each other only when an incident happens, never talking proactively. This is how industry was a few years back, not long ago, right? And obviously the trend has changed, the whole process. I'm talking less technology and more process because to me technology is just an enabler. If you have the right thought process, you will be able to put the right processes and controls into it. How is the development now changed? Is that all those organizations that were disparate, working on their own siloed, have come together to develop a product, where security is baked in right from the beginning. A few years back, a concept called security by design was evolved, which means that you bake into security right in your design itself when you start designing the product, not when you're implementing it in upper phases of. Even that has gone through an evolution in terms of baking that into even higher up. There is a term called non-functional requirements for those of you in IT. Non-functional requirements was an addendum feature where if you got time, you did it. That's how the industry was. It's no longer the case. Now it is part of your functional requirements. In fact, there's nothing like non-functional requirements because when you develop a product, these features have to be part of it. So that's the evolution of how it is. That's where we are. Now that's the the kind of process part of it. Now how do you actually achieve all of this that we talked about, right? Easier said than done. So the concept of security by design was definitely one thing. Secondly, and I'll give you an example of security by design. Few years back when wallets were designed, for those of you who use wallets where you can store in your phone credit cards that you don't have to carry the actual card itself, but you can still use the credit card through your digital. Lot of apprehension when that whole design came in, if your account numbers or credit card numbers are actually getting transmitted during the time where you were interacting, your phone was interacting with a point of sale machine. But if you look at the design, your credit card numbers and account numbers are not getting transmitted in that, right? That's secure by design, right? Your data that is that is your individual data is never getting transmitted, yet you are still being able to process your transaction, right? I won't go into the details of how it happens, but for those of you technologists, you probably know how it is done. But that's security by design, thinking about how to secure your most confidential data from being able to transmit from one party to another party, and how do you make sure that you do that in a way that you are still able to enable the product feature. Taking a step further, as the technology evolved, you see blockchain. Blockchain's inherent design is security, right? Almost impossible, although you are hearing now, even that is breakable, but that's an evolution that we have to make. But inherently, the framework itself provides that data security and confidentiality that is almost impregnable in terms of how it does. One of the other aspects that is coming recently, and I think Pooja talked about it, is the whole data localization aspect, right? And ability to trace the data from front to back is probably the most important of security, because that's what tells you where do you need to secure and how do you need to secure, right? And that is within point-to-point systems. But the data, like Vidya talked about, right? Data is the new oil. Now we are talking about data being within the jurisdiction. I think India is talking about localizing payment data. There are regional countries in Asia-Pac, especially Asia-Pac is big in this kind of data localization jurisdiction, where they don't want their citizens' data to be leaving the borders of that country, right? So borders of the country is a virtual border, but how do you secure that and ensure that they feel safe that the data is not going to a third party that shouldn't be accessing it? So that is a big industry now. That space is still evolving both from legalities, writing the laws, regulations, and how do you deal with when somebody falls prey to a vulnerability, is all an evolving space. And how do you make sure that the data is within the jurisdiction and yet feed into the globalization nature of how you operate, right? All of our systems are very global in nature. They have to be available in every jurisdiction in every country, but yet for that countries or for that jurisdictions, customer data still needs to be localized. So this is one of the emerging use cases that is so it's not about just client data, it's also about a jurisdiction and where you are and who's the owner and how do you trace it. So that's some of the things that are happening. We could talk a lot about it, but I think that to start off with, that's probably what I would talk about.
Thank you, Krishna. I think that helps us segue into the next topic.
Let me address first, UPI has been really a revolution for our country, for really the world. I don't know how many of you really know that even lot of other countries in the world, the really biggest countries and the biggest economies, do not have what we end up calling as instant rails. What it means is that money can be transferred from one bank account to other bank account within seconds. Even the IMPS system that we had was quite state of the art, and many countries don't have it, and UPI has literally taken it to the next level. And it is really, really like UPI has the way I have myself seen the graphs grow, right? Like how, and it was literally like a hockey stick growth, which people talk about. And being part of the system, I am amazed every day the number of usage I end up seeing, because literally all of us now just walk with our phone and we can shop. We don't worry about change, right? So it is really making a lot of difference. So let me address the first cashless part of it. So I wouldn't like to think too much about cashless first, but even in last 2-3 years after especially COVID happened, right? Just imagine number of transactions you probably were doing in cash are now happening using UPI. So total cashless is a very big term. Let's not even think about it. I don't think any country has even done it. But what is happening, let's just ride that wave. And even with that, we are achieving a lot. I have forgotten to actually go out to the ATM, and every day I remind myself that I should at least keep some money, because my father actually taught me some of those tips when I first stepped out of my house, that you should at least have this much money in your pocket, right? And I am not doing that anymore, right? So I think it has been a big revolution. Let me address now the security part of it. In general, Indian banking system is pretty secure, because we are very used to, as a users, right, very used to having the second factor auth, which gives us a lot of comfort. uh, so in terms of account takeover fraud, right, we have two factor auth in our card transaction, and UPI is very secure from the design, because when you want to add your bank account in any app, you need multiple factors, and on each of your transaction is also secured by a pin, and there is already a device binding that makes sure that you own the account and it is only bound to that device, to that instance, right? So this is all building a lot of security in the design, which has been actually the key success criteria as well, because we are able to do it security, that's why securely, that's why all this payments and instant payment work, right? And on top of that, most app have their another security layer, which we either it is a fingerprint or another pin, for example. So I think security is addressed here by design, but there are still few important factors that can be added over it. Like for example, digital banking is coming, so KYC related to opening a bank account becomes much more important, because multiple fake digital identities should not be there. The second part to it is that lot of users who are now using payments, right, banking or money has to be available for each and every person. They might not be a technologist, I mean most of them are not actually technologists. So how do you make it easy? So education is very very important part in making it secure, because there is only so much the apps can do, the so much banking can do, so much NPCI can do in building secure designs, giving guidelines about how to make it more secure, right? But at the end of it, the user owns few key things to prove account ownership, like your OTP or the PIN, and that responsibility lies with the user. But we do understand and take a responsibility that the user might not be knowing it. So the user education is very central to making this whole thing work as well. And it is about, like how Vidya repeated, right, communication. So you do the communication, you feel that it has gone through, like you have probably done a media campaign, told people that you need to give your pin only when you're sending money out. But I still end up meeting people who have not understood that concept, and that tells me that communication, we are only at the first step probably in our user education. So I think, to me, what we have realized over years being part of this journey, which we were not doing probably so much in the first 2 years of after UPI launched, and now you will see that there is so much emphasis on user education. So there is software that is built secure by design, there are fraud fighting systems that are there, and the third part is user education. I think these three are very key.
Thank you, Shweta. I'll take a cue from the responses I've received from Krishna and Shweta. We spoke of non-functional requirements which become a task of the day. We also heard of data localization. For the UPI, where is the data stored today?
So you pay all the data has to be in India.
In India. And Purnima, my question to you would be, why is it important for data localization to have your data stored in the country you reside?
That's an interesting question. I think that is still very fluid. Right now, if you see the new bill that has come, there is some sort of change in thought process happening, but there is a bar there that if you do store it outside of India, the laws have to be at least as safe as what is in India or better. So there are certain changes that are coming. This was a big concern, and I think the industry has taken it to the government also. Data storage in India itself was a big concern. But I'm not, to be honest, about UPI, I can't say, but generally data storage if you see the new digital, and I'll just point out one thing to you. Earlier, when this bill was being contemplated, it was personal data storage bill. Now it has become digital personal data storage bill. So there is a shift that is happening, and I think the changes are also coming. So this is a space to watch out for.
Thank you, Purnima. I think I have one question which will maybe digress from what we were talking on. It's on a different topic, the cryptocurrency. So my question to the panelists would be, it could be for, or in favor of, or not in favor of. Will cryptocurrency be the next big thing for India's economy, and how do you think how secure it is?
I think I'll take a shot at that first from my little experience. So I did a course, a short course, because I was hearing so much about blockchain. I did a short course from Oxford for 6 weeks just to understand what I'm totally technologically challenged, as I told you earlier. And later I did go to Switzerland also and check out what was happening there. I think we are far, far behind. I think India has missed that bus. Probably we'll have to catch up with some new technology over time, but I think we are not there anywhere in this scheme of things right now. And the adoption, the legal adoption of these processes, firstly, A, recognizing that they exist in India, B, recognizing their importance, and C, then working around how to get the best out of it. I think all these three things we are far behind. So to your question, in a very short way, I would say we missed the bus. Yes, there is still scope,
Fair.
but I don't know whether we'll ever be world leaders as such.
Krishna, do you have a take on it?
Yeah, so just to build on that, right? You cannot stop advancement in technology. That's just a given, right? You can probably control the pace of it, depending on where you are and what you want in a certain jurisdiction, but you can't stop it. So I see us doing exchanges in corporate. India is talking about e-money now, moving away from digital money. So there's so many things happen. I mean, you could potentially go back to barter systems, ages old, where you were trading, and that could be a way of, but maybe in a more electronic fashion, more technological fashion. So I don't think we can stop these things. So I think you have to think about, okay, we want to advance in technology, but it cannot be at the expense of security. And unless we solve the security issues around these things, we will never go to the next step. I think that's India's problem right now.
I'll just add to what was just said. Very correct. I think PMLA is a big concern here. That's prevention of money laundering. The way traditionally India has had such a lot of cash sort of economy, a parallel economy here. And given the terrorism issues, the terrorism funding and all those issues, I think somewhere the hesitation from the government has also been as a result of these issues, So completely, that's a very good point you made out.
Thank you. Shweta, do you have your take on this?
Yeah, so I think crypto, in my opinion, is still everyone is watching. It's a revolution. I just want to add that, like, when India wants to adopt something, right, it's not as easy at any other country, right? We are a very different country. We have to do the scaled implementation of stuff, not only from the technology perspective, because technology scaled implementation, multiple companies have solved it. It's the solved problem. Security is built by design, so maybe, but the third part that I talked about, right? How do we have so many users who will learn this, adopt this? Because money is something central. It's like the basic needs of life, and you have to deploy it for everyone. So that will be a challenge for the government also to adopt. And our government, I like the approach that they generally have been doing things which are in favor of the users, right? Data localization, all the laws, like I like the point that was touched upon, that these laws are evolving very with a rapid speed as the technology is evolving in the money payment sector. So they are adjusting very fast, and they are doing that right now. Something that is very volatile today, imagine that how much it will hurt to the masses if they start investing into it and it doesn't work. So that kind of volatility can we really adopt in our country with different spectrum of people, right?
Fair enough.
So that's my thought process. So I'm watching this space.
That's a good way to. Okay, with lots of my questions being answered today, I can open it up for the audience to ask some questions to our panelists, and we can take those questions now.
So, Namratha, if you allow me, just one observation I
please
want
do.
to make, and that is going back to your question of crypto. I have a 13-year-old daughter who came up to me the other day and she said she wants to get into crypto and she wants to invest in crypto. And, now what is the conversation you have with her? As a mother who's a lawyer, I say, no, stay away from it. So I'm already killing that in her mind. So that is the challenge that nobody is noticing. We have to address it because the younger generation has possibly to live with crypto, right? But we are not talking about it because of the lag that we have. True. And there are complexities around it. You can't blame the government. There are complexities because of the Indian cultural setup. But this is a space that we have to watch out for, how we converse with our children, and we tell them, okay, crypto, find out about it on the net, understand. Right now it's not permitted, but maybe later it will be. I think that conversation has to change.
So I think the way the whole framework was built, right, was decentralizing a lot of growth automatically, right? The protocol was defined for multiple apps to survive together, multiple parties, like a whole transaction in UPI goes through 5-party system, and the protocol was designed well for this whole decentralized growth right from the start. So I'll give it a lot to the architect and the team of architect who thought about it, and then multiple things happened at the right time also to fuel the growth, like for example the whole digitization, and then COVID, where people actually went a lot more toward the contactless payments, gave their boost to it as well.
No. Right to be forgotten is for the right of the person's information to be erased. Okay. So the owner of my information is on the internet. I have the privacy, the law of privacy involves me having the right to get myself forgotten, which means that my information on the internet can be removed. I'll tell you where it comes from. You see, there are many kinds of cases that come in the Supreme Court. I'm just giving you an example. There are matrimonial cases. There are cases where women go through lots of issues, like, for example, rape cases. You don't want that information on the net all the time, their name on the net all the time. You want that to be erased. So that is the right to be forgotten. So a crime, no, anything that cannot be done in person cannot be done online. That is the mantra. We must realize it's just an alter ego that has been created there. So if I cannot murder in person, I cannot murder online. If I cannot murder and say, oh my, I forgot I murdered, I cannot say that online, right? So crime is crime. It's just that what was in person by the human is now by the digital nagrik. Okay?
Hello. I'm from JPMorgan Chase as well. I'm really curious, how do you see the whole payments industry evolving, or what would be those revolutionary technologies in the payments industry, both as from a security perspective or some innovative ideas that are going to take place? Not right now, because UPI is something we didn't even think of a few years back. So what do you think would be those revolutionary things that happen in the payment industry?
Our team is already innovating here. While we talk, they're already getting ideas, I think, for the next payment platforms to put onto the stage.
So I think there is a lot of innovations that's happening around us, not only like where payment is the last leg, but for example, how much we have all started shopping online, we ordering food online, services online. This has just opened up new opportunities for a lot of the businesses that were not even businesses, or a lot of people who were just limited to probably doing business in very like close vicinity. Now they are just doing businesses on much bigger platforms. So I think all of the innovation that has happened in last 2 years or 5 years can just multiply by 10x or 100x. That would be one of the next thing, and it is going on that pace. Now, from somewhere that something that will come up that even I can't imagine, that I probably cannot tell you today, but definitely there is 100x opportunity from something that has come from just probably 0 to 1 or 0 to 5.
Thank you. Krishna, you have something?
Yeah, no, I was just going to build that, right? It's hard to say how, like Shada said, but I would see two things. One is multiplication of what we have today into manifold, but obviously when we talk about digital security, evolving in the space, making sure that it is even more secure, and using as minimal data what a person, but still being able to provide the feature. But if you also look at, including cryptocurrency and e-money that you are talking about, how do you make sure that you can still associate an asset to a person and not have accounts to deal with that I have money in the accounts? Because at the end of the day, that's what is exposing you to a security. But how do you not even have that and still be able to transact money and be able to do what you need to be doing today? Could be the next evolution, right? And that comes from, where you have to remove barriers around where you are hosting the whole concept of banks and account numbers. All of this will probably undergo quite a bit of change with some of the things that are coming around, where it is a person-to-person payments rather than a payment that is going through a third-party organization. Today, the biggest problem that we have, our security is divided, is because I am paying a payment to a person B or an organization B, but it is going through 5 different organizations. There in itself are opportunities for failure or what we call as digital security. How do you build systems that doesn't have to be going through multiple organizations? If I am paying a person B, it has to be between me and that person. That's where the crypto, the whole blockchain concept comes in. That's where I see personally where the industry will move towards and making it even more secure. That's what I see.
Very true. Thank you, Krishna. I think we have room for one last question.
Hi, I'm Karuna from JPMorgan. So I guess this is a joint question for Purnima and Shweta. So when you said the data is stored localized for UPI related transaction, for countries like Europe, we have GDPR Act where we know that, the individual knows or at any point of time there's right to information. They can ask what transaction information is being stored. So for India, do we have such regulations, or how can I be sure that what part of my transaction information is stored, or who can have access to that data? Thanks.
Yes, again, as I said earlier, laws are evolving. This space also, laws are evolving. In fact, your recent bill that is being introduced, the draft bill that has come out, is touching upon a lot of these aspects. And India is very clear that, so for example, EU has certain requirements. It has to be, and one more thing, when data is shared, it has to be under a valid contract, or if it is permissible under law, if it is a requirement under law. So there are safeguards that have been built up. EU model is largely followed in India as well to some extent. There also, these requirements are pretty strict, as you rightly pointed out. And India is also taking on the similar sort of actions. The new bill that has come up is very, very, taking on that space very aggressively. Section 7 of the IT Act again has a lot of requirements there regarding data storage, collection, processing, consent, withdrawing of consent. There are certain aspects which are not there yet. For example, deletion of, your information. Then also now one area which will be, I think, decided upon in times to come is who owns that data. Things like these, yes, litigations are going to happen, but to a large extent, I think there are rules which are taking care of this. But yes, we have a long way to go, and the new draft bill is trying to address that domain as well.
Shweta, do you want to pitch in there as well?
No, I think from legal perspective, Purnima can cover much better than me.
Okay. So while we come to the end of the panel discussion, I'll quote unquote what I collated today. The 3 keywords: globalize, digitize, and secure, and processes and systems, while we grow fast and be safe. Thank you all for being wonderful audience today. Thank you, panelists.
Thank you, Namratha, and thank you, panelists. That was wonderful. It felt like a master class in digital security, isn't it? And I think you didn't have to go to a Harvard or Michigan to do that. You just got it here. And thank you so much. And you know, while technology felt intimidating, I feel legal is equally intimidating. So, but thank you so much again. You would say more. Thank you, panelists. Thank you so much. And Namratha for doing an incredible job of moderating as well. Let's give up for the panelists. You know, by this time, our brain, we have something called a prefrontal cortex. Do you all know the prefrontal cortex? It's like a slate that's making notes continuously. I'm sure it's saying, look, I'm loaded with information. I can't take it anymore. So let's welcome Venu Thotakura. The idea apparently started with a vision to provide the most natural nutrition with affordability, and that's such a beautiful word, affordability, to every segment of the market. He has been an IT leader for the last 23 years, leading cybersecurity, another word, cybersecurity, with the Big Four consulting company, known for his great sense of humor, and can't wait to hear that, electric energy and vast knowledge. He is loved by his teams globally. Inspired by his two daughters and, of course, his personal fitness goals, that's how the fitness, Fitsport, nutrition started. That's how it took birth. So let's hear it from Venu on his journey to Shark Tank. Wow. Thank you so much, Venu.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks a lot, AnitaB and everyone here. Really appreciate your time. I think it's a weekday afternoon and taking time off on spending time to enrich yourself with information about digital security. It gives me very good memories because 2 years ago, I was heading cyber forensics in a Big Four consulting firm, and I was actually making those talks about cyber security, digital security. Now it looks like I'm on the other side of the table, right? So, when I started a little bit of myself, I started my career about 23 years ago, like you guys in IT. Most part of my life, I was in IT. Last 2 years, we have built up this nutrition company. The idea was to, make sure that we eat right and effectively feel great as well. So what we figured out over the course of life, I think most of you have been in your career for quite a few years now, is when we start our education, people talk about, get into a job, and they tell you a big lie. They tell you, get into a job and you can do everything. The truth is, you get into a job, you can only do a job. You can't do anything else because, some of us really get time to actually take rest after the job, but some of us have 24/7 jobs, and people who are in cyber or digital, I can vouch for them. You keep running around airports, you all the time. You eat someplace, you sleep some other place, and I was heading my team, which was into cyber incident management. So anybody gets hacked, any big organization gets hacked, and we get called. It's like that police cops job, right? You get a call and then you rush to the airport, you take a 4 a.m. So that was when we were thinking, once you get into your job, then most of the times your EMI start, right? Your car EMI, your housing loan EMI. But what is happening, in the last 20, 25 years is unknowingly, once you reach 30 or 40 or for some other family member of yours, you're starting something called as the hospital EMI. The idea was to make something wherein make less people go to the hospitals, maybe a few hundreds less, and we would have done what we wanted to do, right? So in our daily life, busy life, we tend to eat everything and anything that comes in front of us, and usually we don't even have time, because I think today I'm pretty sure most of you might have skipped lunch. How many of you skipped lunch today? See, right? And then me being a foodie, right? I can't eat anything and everything that I see. There were days when somebody told me there's a certain dhaba which is good food, 150 kilometers from here. We drove and we used to do that, right? So a little bit about myself. Like I said, I started my career in IT, worked in different cities, worked in the UK, Cambridge for a year, lived in the US for about 6.5 years, 2 different states. Once, first time in the East Coast, second time in the West Coast because I love travel. So while we were searching, we were trying to find it for next 4 to 5 years. And once we got into cybersecurity, we didn't even know how 4 or 5 years just went by. Because every day you're running around, there's no weekend, there's no weekday. But then while we were doing this experimentation, we got some good support from the National Institute of Nutrition. We were able to do some trial and error. And trust me, the first version of this bar, we got it in a bowl. Somebody gave us a spoon, put it in a bowl and said, this is what, all the ingredients that you're talking about, this is the best we could do. And then the only knowledge that we had in food is eating. So we were on the other side of the table all the time. I don't even know how to cook, right? So every day when you switch on your TV or your yoga guru or your practitioner talks about eating dry fruits, eating good, eating well and all that. So we were very, very clear on wanting to have all of these ingredients there in the bar. And then we wanted in a bar shape because, the idea was to school-going students or corporate people or travel or trekking, it needs to be convenient, it needs to be affordable, and most importantly, it needs to be tasty. So we were able to achieve it in the first 6 months to 1 year. Then the whole journey, the whole COVID, and it was fun. It's very enriching, fun. For somebody who says that, how many of you would want to really end up doing a startup some point in time in your life? Right? Good number, right? You should try because what you get taught in these schools or what you get taught in our lives, you'll get a lot better learnings when you do your own startup. A word of caution, if somebody is of the opinion that I don't want to do a 9-to-5 job, I don't want a boss telling me what to do, and then I want to do a startup, let me tell you, everybody who buys your bar for 50 rupees is going to tell you what to do, right? And let's assume you build your own unicorn, you're your own boss and all that, but still you have a board to report to. So the reporting doesn't end, be it a corporate job or a startup or a unicorn, or you could be like Elon Musk, you're still reporting to the board, right? So, so again, working on your own idea, working on passion, but what I would try to highlight here is, there must be something in our hearts, right? Which we would have thought, like how many of you guys know Hindi? Mujhe bachpan mein ye karna tha. I wanted to do this as a child. I wanted to become an artist. I wanted to travel, or I wanted to become a dancer. We couldn't do it because of time or money or parents. Everybody wanted to tell you that, go get a job, then you can do all of this stuff. Luckily for us, we come from IT, so you have your weekend, you probably get some chance to do whatever after the, getting sleep deprived for the whole week, and the weekend you do all this stuff. You should follow what you love, right? And then it's very, very hard to find how to make money on something that you have passion for, right? All of us are working, I was working for more than 20 years, but we were working for that paycheck most of the times. We kind of ended up loving what we did. I started as a software engineer, did a project management, program management, P&L, numbers, and all this stuff. And one thing all of us should understand is management only likes 3 things: numbers, colors, and trends. Right? If you're good at all of these things, you'll be better in your startup as well. So you learn a lot of things in organizations, and then you go end up trying to use the same skill set in your startup or anything that you do, right? So look for ideas that come in into your heart, something that you're very, very passionate about. And all that. So while doing this, what happened was there was an advertisement that we saw about Shark Tank, right? So I've been a big fan of Shark Tank, and I've watched like all of those seasons back in US, back here, and all that, try to understand all that. Because most of the times when you go to an investor, these are the same questions that they ask you, because they probably have done a crash course in Shark Tank, and then they will ask you the same questions, right? So you were like, while applying, I knew that, this is probably not going to work. We are more of a traditional business, we are not a tech business which can, go from 0 to million in like 6 months or 1 year and all that. Luckily, we went through the first round. We traveled to Bangalore a whole day. They gave us good coffee, good food, and we gave the shot in Bangalore. I went with the team. We had a lot of fun in Bangalore. It was more like a, let's take a weekend off, go party in Bangalore and come back. We never thought we'll get selected. We were told that 36,000 people applied. And like 36,000, we are a 3-year-old, 2.5-year-old company by 2-year-old company by then, like entering the third year. We had some decent numbers going our way. And we were like, okay, the fun part of, taking a picture behind the Shark Tank logo, sending those selfies to everybody. It was all great, exciting and all that. Then about a month after that, we get a call saying that you have a video round, right? So I said, what video round? We did that in Bangalore. No, you're in the top 1,000 people who got selected. I was like, wow, that was a wow moment. That, okay, getting selected someplace is any day good. And this is more of a validation of what you have been thinking, what you've been trying to do. Somebody else is also thinking the same thing. And some organization like a Shark Tank is doing it. And more so, this was the first season of Shark Tank in India, Sony TV. So we had a video round and we did some good recordings there, sent a few recordings, then they called us, had some questions of what do you do, how much money, all those great things that all of you guys know, right? So it's more like, trying to find out if there's a new job, what is the package, what is the location, whom am I reporting to, is it a 5-day week, do you have a 24/7 shift, I don't want to do 24/7 support, do we have a cab, all sort of basic stuff. Right? So these guys called us and then about a month later, I kind of forgot that we did the Shark Tank thing. Then a call comes in saying that, oh, you're one of those selected 167 people, and you have to be in. Can you make it to Mumbai for a week? I said, I'll be there for the whole year, right? So you call me, I'll be there for a whole year. So and then good that they gave us some decent accommodation, and there was about 4 to 5 days that we had to be there. Amazing experience trying to, in those 4 days, we were, I think, part of that 5th or 6th batch. So it was all well planned, 30 people in a batch, 35 people in a batch. So we were, I think, the 6th people to go there, 6th group to go there. Met a lot of people, crazy ideas, dumb ideas, great ideas, people who are making a lot of money, people who are there not for money, just for the exposure, people who were already funded big time. There were people who were selling pan, there were people who were selling nighties, there were people who were selling t-shirts. Amazing people, right? And they were couple entrepreneurs, they were individual entrepreneurs, they were corporate guys, somebody who comes from a business family himself or herself. So interesting people, and we were able to do those auditions and all that. Yeah, one good thing or the bad thing that happened is we didn't get funded because we were told one day before that, because we were too into the game. They wanted something in the first 6 months or an idea stage wherein one thing we had to understand was these guys were putting in their own money, right? So there's not Sony TV funding or any VC fund, so they were putting in their own money. So hardly 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs check and all that, but the beauty is for marketing, for marketing it costs a bomb. So we were there for that exposure. We got some good insights. I think Namratha was there, Aman was there, Ashneer was the whatever he was, right? So initially, first 2-3 minutes, I was thinking, okay, this is like that scripting thing that works, right? They had all those mics, and we were thinking that questions were being fed, which I think were being fed. So I thought he's playing that Kevin O'Reilly kind of a role. Somebody has to be the bad guy, big daddy of the investing, and he shouts at you, you're dead to me, you can't come up. So I thought Ashneer was that thing, but they were like, Kon khata hai? Like, who will buy this and all that. So I said, we already sold 3 crore worth of bars. Right? Okay. And then somebody is like, oh, you know what? Aapka packing acha nahi hai. Theek hai, you come on board, let's fix it together. Right? Then Aman was like, you guys don't have marketing experience. I said, yes, we don't have that. Now, that's why it probably will take us 5 years. It took you a year, it will take us 5 years. Then the people group guy, the Shadi.com guy, he was very decent. I think he was one of the most decent guys in the show. Gave good feedback, but he said, this is not the line that I want to be interested in. The lens card guy gave a lot of gyan also. It's like, see, he said innovation and all that. I was like, why, you're selling specs. I got my LASIK done 2 years ago, but then I have been wearing specs for 25 years. So the corner shop eye specs wala bhi wahi karta hai, what you do, right? So, and this guy talks about innovation and all. I was like, okay, decent, if I'm interviewing, I can ask any question, right? So it's like that. So the interesting story, we were ramping up, like 10 years ago, we were ramping up, and every day there were interviews and all that, and we didn't have panelists. So I was the panel for CRM, panel for Java, panel for .NET, because we used to open that book, read the context and the topics, and then initial interview. ये करना पड़ता था. You want to hire like 1,000 people in 3 months. You got to do that, right? So again, Shark Tank, coming back to it, Namita was all questions, and we were actually inclined more towards Namita because she comes from healthcare. And the idea of Fitsport Nutrition, the company's name is Fitsport Nutrition Foods. The idea is to start with nutrition, more with energy bar, make the recipes of 30-year-old, make them look cool, right? You know, the simple funda of life is anything that was not there 30 years ago is not good for your health. It's as cool as that. Now, don't talk about smartphone, don't talk about laptop. I'm not here to talk about all that. But the food standpoint, anything that was not there 30 years ago is not good for health. So that was always the thing. But like being a foodie, I kept eating, and you know, I had my own weight issues long ago. And after crossing 30, I used to tell people, "Ki once you're 30, take it up, dekhte hain. You know, we'll start running or doing a weight loss regime or a diet." I used to hate diet. I still hate diet. I don't like that word diet. Hota kya? It's so depressing. You know, it starts with a D. Depressing starts with a D. So, you know, you should eat as much as you can, right? You should eat whatever you can. Just that if we can, you know, slightly change kya kha sakte, you know, instead of fried, roast karo and all that. So the idea was to build something, pack it up, make it look cool. And you know, I have a 8-year-old daughter. She was 4 when I started this idea. Whenever I took her to a store, right? Anything that she used to pick, from a 5 rupee chocolate to a 500 rupee Toblerone, right? I think some of you must have your siblings, your kids, or your friends' kids. They pick up a chocolate, they're super duper happy. Once you start reading the labels, no, that's when the hell starts. The hell breaks loose, because I am telling you, starting to read labels, which I started, I think 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, it's hectic. You know, half of them you don't understand, right? But the remaining half that you understand is also, you know, isse acha to paracetamol de do, right? You know, give paracetamol to the people. Put some sugar, add some paracetamol. Because all of these things are meant not for our human body. So how do we tell people, right? You know, today you can't go and talk about pharmaceutical companies or chocolate companies. You can't file a suit against Cadbury or any other, I don't want to mention name, but any other thing, because you are small, because they'll shut you off in a day, right? So the reason was to build Fitsport Nutrition was to put things in a pack which looks trendy. Energy bar anyways is catching up, the trend is catching up. Nutrition bar, the trend is catching up. And for kids, what you want to do is, kids will not listen to anything that their parents or grandparents say. Right? You know, they won't listen to you. You say no, they will probably want to do it. The reason being, you know, like we did to our parents, right? So we didn't listen to our parents, so we can't expect them to listen to us. But if a Chota Bheem or a Chutki tells them on a Cartoon Network, or an Iron Man tells them, right, you know, this is good, they will. So in fact, before Wave 2, we also cracked a deal with Cartoon Network. We wanted Chota Bheem, so there's an X amount, and you can use Chota Bheem on anything that you want. Water bottle, banyan, and anything that you want, you can. So we want to do that. I think now that we are done with the COVID things and all that, we are coming up with some kids bars, so that we, you know, make it look, give them a toy or something. Because people buy a lot of chocolates because of the toy and not eat it. So we want to do that. So the premise of building a company around it was trying to make these things cool. So again, we wanted a big pharma distribution and all that. So that's where Namita comes from, MCure Pharmaceuticals. I think till the end, you know, Kamini, she was there with us in the Shark Tank thing. You know, she would vouch for us. Till the end, we thought that Namita is going to invest. Till the end, you know, she was asking nice questions, because what we are aspiring to do now, we have actually had a lot of lab tests done, and thanks to NIN, we got a good feedback from them. We're trying to make a bar for women, make a bar for athletes, make a nutrition product. I should call it a nutrition product for kids and all that. You know, most of the women that we know, and in my family at least, and you would watch for it also, have either a vitamin D, or a hormone, or a PCOS, or you name it, something or the other is there. So we built a product, we built a mix which we wanted to use. The main premise will be dry fruits and nuts, but then the mix that we put in. So Namita was very interested. And then we also have a bar for diabetics, because Kala Jamun works like magic for anybody with sugar levels. The doctor won't tell you this, because, you know, I got used to you paying me 2,000 every month. Why will I say stop? right? So I have one question for any doctor. Yeah, diabetic pill जो तुम मुझे देते हो, right? You know, or anybody. And thankfully, I am not diabetic yet, but so they write this prescription, right? It's as if, you know, try this. It doesn't work. I'll try a new one. Like, you know, did you study MBBS, or, you know, you're like trialing on me, right? Because the fact of the matter is they would not want to stop that 2,000 rupees that you pay them every day, every month. So that is the reason they say you start a pill, you have to use it for forever. And then that pill, bechara, that doesn't understand difference between a liver and a heart and a brain. So it works on everything. And then you have kidney issues, liver issues and all. So we have this Kala Jamun thing that we started. And in fact, Namita and MCure also launched something in diabetic, but then they actually started selling it through doctors. We wanted to sell it to the consumer. So she connected the dots, and then she also spoke about how about using Satavari as an Ayurvedic ingredient, how about using something else. So it was all well connected, but somehow I think the other 4 guys said no, and then she said no. And we were also not telecast, the reason being out of 167, a lot of funded ones were also didn't telecast, because probably we didn't have much of masala added, or, you know, not much of fights with Ashneer. He gave us, and then I probably gave it back. You know, I come from corporates which were cutthroat, so luckily I was able to give whatever he asked me. I had questions like, when you go to an interview, when you come out and say, I answered all 30 questions. So it was more like that for me. We answered everything, and they clearly told us the size that you have right now, and then you can't give it. Aman was very, very supportive. He said he never tasted anything like this. He said the market was growing, and he'll be interested some point in time when we pick up size. So that was the Shark Tank experience, but then that was one of those experiences. But some of the experiences that I really, really love is, there were days in the last 2 years, right, when I sleep in at night, which you usually don't sleep that well when you're in startups. And luckily I got used to it in cybersecurity, so not sleeping till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. was okay. Right, because you never know, 1:30, 2 o'clock, you're trying to shut the laptop or shut your your phone, work 8 hours in a day and come back, right? In 5 years, you'll do more than what you did in corporate job. In startup, the problem that happens is 11:30 a.m. your friend calls. You know what? Nai movie ka ticket hai. You know, there's this new movie on a Friday morning. You want to go for a premiere. You're in JPMorgan, you can't because your manager is there. But when you're in a startup, sometimes there's a temptation of chal movie dekhte hain. Right? So these temptations are because you're your own boss, right? Nobody is calculating your timesheet, nobody is approving your timesheet. So this is one. Second thing is we get so attached to it, right? I strongly believe in Murphy law, and then my team calls it Murphy Thotakura law, because everything that has to go wrong will go wrong. In your corporate office, if something goes wrong, there's an admin to take care of it. There's an HR to take care of it. The food is not good. There's a cultural committee, food committee, they take care of it. In the startup, in the first 1-2 years, you're the ones who need to take care of it. Third is, I'm a big fan of a process called de-skilling, right? Everything that you do in your job or in your daily life or in a startup, anywhere, like in your 24 hours, whatever you need to do, you don't need 100% you, right? Like, you know, Swiggy food delivery was now, but then earlier also you could actually pay somebody 20 rupees and get your delivery done, right? So try and find those tasks that, you can't delegate sleep, right? You can't delegate family time. You can probably delegate a lot of other stuff. So find what you can delegate, and then what is not very important, what is not very important. And this holds good for both. The de-skilling thing holds good for both. I used to do it a lot, because people talk about IT being a niche, technology thing. Even in IT, even in support desks or development, 80% of the job can be done by somebody who's not you. The problem with trying to find somebody who's not you is 2 things. Intent. You look for intent, content will follow, right? So intent you'll have to look for. Second, you train 5 people, only 1 or 2 people will come up to speed, and they'll be. So you'll have to take a hit on those 3 people, right? And then, if you're not somebody who can delegate well, you're too attached to your job or your report and all that, then it's a little bit tough in any way, shape or form. Startup is financially very, very, a huge task when it comes to a family thing. You don't have your savings right or the finances right or something, but I think it's only a matter of time you'll find it. So if you're not somebody who can let go, if you're not somebody who can find people and delegate, if you're not somebody who doesn't like surprises, the good, bad, ugly ones, startup is all about surprises. It's all fun, it's all fun. Good surprises, bad surprises, and then luckily for us who comes from a structured area, structured organizations and all that, it helps us, we can put that structure. There should be a method to the madness, right? And luckily the field that I chose, I don't need that level of technology skill. Of course, there are 2 or 3 food scientists who we need to deal with, but otherwise there's not much of technology that we need. Of course, digital marketing, website and all that need, and me being from tech, it helps a lot. But if you're someone who can do all of these 3 things, you can de-skill, you can find people to do it for you, you can find cheaper person to do it for you, because let's say you are at a certain package and somebody else is at a 1/3 or 1/5 package, hire people initial phase. Because I have seen a lot of people who say that I don't have time, even in corporates, even in startup. It's the same thing, it's the same person, not the situation. Because they can't find time because they're doing a lot of things that they don't have to do themselves. Does that answer your question? So thank you guys. Thanks for your time and wonderful audience. Thanks for bearing with me for about an hour now. Thank you.
Thanks so much. That was a wonderful way of sharing your story, and I love the humor too. It has been such an incredible entrepreneurial journey, right? What an inspiration. Thanks so much for inspiring all of us. And if you do have an idea, I think there is